All right, good morning, everyone. I call this meeting to order. It is 7:31 a.m. on Monday, May 22nd, 2023. Will the secretary please do the roll call?
Barr here.
Harris here.
Graff here.
Loy here.
Are there any corrections to the minutes for the March 27th meeting? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next, we have general agenda items. We have the elections for president and vice president of the Police and Fire Commission and appointment of the secretary. Are there any nominations?
Well, I nominate Mr. Harris
I second that for president.
for president, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I accept. Are there any other nominations?
No.
All right. Then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Are there any nominations for vice president? I-
I'll nominate Bill Graff.
I'll second that.
Fine.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And Cheryl, would you do us the honors of being secretary again?
Sure.
All right. Thank you. All right. Next on the agenda then, moving on, we have monthly presentations. We'll start with the monthly presentations of the police department. Chief Bliven, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
In your packet is our Wausau Police Department quarterly report for the first quarter of 2023. I just touch base on a couple of items there. First is we have a number of officers in training. Friday we were at the graduation for the recruit school police academy at North Central Technical College. We had 5 candidates that graduated from that class. So this week they'll be starting in-field training. Actually, they'll probably doing some orientation first and then field training a little bit later, maybe early next week. So they're about 4 or 5 months out from filling shifts on the patrol. And we also had during that first quarter, we had 5 additional officers that were in field training. We've got a couple that have now gotten out onto their own and they're filling shifts as a patrol officer, and we've got a few more that are finishing up their field training. So if you look at the overtime report in the back of that in the back of that quarterly report, you'll see that there's a fair amount of overtime, and that's a result of all of those patrol vacancies that exist as a result of the number of officers we have in training. So our field trainers and our first line supervisors are working really hard to be able to get everybody up to speed and also coordinate and fill all those shifts and make sure that the calls for service are being handled well. So it's been a busy quarter for us, but we see some light at the end of the tunnel in that regard, so that's a good thing. In February, assessors from Wisconsin Law Enforcement Accreditation Group, or WILEAG, were here on site in Wausau for our triannual visit for accreditation. And then just a couple of weeks ago, President Harris and Mayor Rosenberg were with me down in Wauwatosa at CIVMIC, and we received our official accreditation for the 3-year period. And we're starting in, of course, gathering proofs for our next 3-year cycle already. So we're very proud of that WILEAG accreditation, and we look to continue that. In that chief's message on the first page of the report, you'll see a number of awards that officers received. Some of them you're probably somewhat familiar with, at least the officer's actions. Officer Josiah Ketterer-Henry received the Hometown Heroes Award in the Madison Legislature as a result of saving not 1 but 2 lives last year, and he got those life-saving awards here at the Police and Fire Commission. So he was recognized in Madison for his actions. Officer Jenna Zinkowicz, she received the Women's Community Assisting Survivors of Sexual Assault Award for her work and investigation in a violent sexual assault case. She did an outstanding job both in supporting the victim of that crime and in beginning the investigation to that. So she received that acknowledgement and award from the women's community. And then Officer Aaron Carlin, he is a certified drug recognition expert, or DRE, and he was recognized by the State DRE Association as a top 10 drug recognition expert. And he received that award in Milwaukee at their banquet. And the reason he got that award is the volume, the number of drug recognition expert evaluations he did. He's been a very busy guy, and it was nice to see him get that recognition. And then you guys had, the Police and Fire Commission here had approved both Ben Thuman for detective and Garrett Carr for lieutenant. And so they both recently began those, serving in those positions, and we're very excited to have them in those positions. To give an update on our flock automated license plate readers, that's equipment. We have 20 cameras around the city of Wausau. And those cameras gather license plates as vehicles go past. And it's an investigative tool, and it alerts us when there are vehicles that are either stolen or on a list for, we're looking for a vehicle for some other reason. And we had some difficulty with our city council being able to find the funding for those cameras. So we found a grant, and that authorized the payment for the first year. And so we're giving regular updates to our city council on the benefits of that flock automated license plate reader technology. And we've had a number of cases in which we were able to identify perpetrators and arrest them and bring them to justice as a result of those cameras. And then in addition to what I've got in the report there, within the last few weeks, we were able to apprehend a person who was in a stolen car from the Green Bay area and had methamphetamine in the car, was visiting a local hotel. So we continue to see success with those ALPR, with that ALPR technology. Yes, sir.
How are they programmed? What jurisdiction? Is it all of Wisconsin? And is it Minnesota? Is it
Yeah.
national? How's that work and how's that controlled?
Yeah, it's actually a national database, so we have access to any agency that has a flock camera that gives access to other agencies to see it, which pretty much every agency gives access to other law enforcement agencies, so we have the ability to see that database from across the country.
So then we have the potential of getting dangerous people, do we not?
Yes, that's the goal, is to be able to identify and apprehend violent criminals, stolen people who have taken, stolen vehicles, that kind of thing. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if they're here, we're probably going to identify them because of those cameras, if their vehicle is in the system as wanted.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And I just wanted to give an update on homelessness. About a month and a half ago, we began enforcing the laws and the ordinances around camping in parks and being in park after hours. And so we've seen a lot of usage of our local resources, the Warming Center, the Salvation Army, the overnight stays at those facilities has grown and increased, which is what we're looking to accomplish with that enforcement, is to encourage people to use those resources that exist for them, and in addition to that, make our downtown a place that people want to come as opposed to want to avoid. And so we're seeing some success with that. Tracy Rieger, our community outreach specialist, has now housed over 20 people in the time that she's been with the city of Wausau, and all of those people, I'm happy to report, remain housed at this point in time. So she's doing a fantastic job housing people and connecting them to resources, and she continues to see success with that. So we're very happy and proud of her for that service. And then just one final thing I'll report on. I think this is page 7 of the quarterly report, and this is the crisis assessment response team numbers. When we started that unit, I think it was 2018, our goal, we had for every crisis call that we went to, 1 out of 4 people we took on an emergency detention and took them to North Central Healthcare, so about 25%. And our goal was to reduce that to about 15%. Because our goal is to keep people in the community and not have to detain them at a detention facility for their own mental health. And so if you look at the report that is in your packet, you'll see that in the first quarter of 23, we only had 19 emergency detentions out of 182 calls for service for mental health, and that's about 10%. So the crisis assessment response team is doing a fantastic job. It's really served our community well, and I think that's an important data point for us to look at. So with that, I'll close my remarks, and if there's any comments or questions.
Are most of those detentions happening when you don't have a CART member available?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. But I can look at that answer and get that answer for you.
And how much does the flock system cost, and is it on a cloud-based data storage?
It's $50,000 a year for the 20 cameras. It's about $2,500 a camera. And yes, it's on a cloud-based system.
Seems cost-effective.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's a really great tool.
With these the shooting of these officers in these rural areas, are we alerting our people with the combination of, like I said, bad people can come in here and training them that this doesn't happen? I mean, this is tragic, of course, but is that a lack of training, or is it just bad luck, or?
No, I think, that the reality is that evil exists in our society and in our world, and we have to train our staff to be prepared at every moment. Every call they go on, every minute that they work, they have to be ready to respond to that violence and to that danger. And these, a lot of times the incidents where officers are ambushed, they happen so quickly. You have to be, immediately ready. And so I would say our training staff does an outstanding job of making sure our officers are aware of the danger that exists, are ready to respond, are looking for clues and signs of violence before they even have an interaction with a citizen or a person, whether that's a traffic stop or a domestic violence call. They're regularly training and reviewing incidents across the country that have happened. And at the end of the day, there are things you have to respond to, and sometimes it ends in tragedy. And we've seen that way too much in Wisconsin for sure in the last couple of months, and it's terrible. So we're doing our best. We have a fantastic training staff. We have good equipment for our officers to help them be safe as possible. Part of the governor's grant for law enforcement last year, we're spending on trauma plates, which will stop most rifle rounds. We always had a vest in the car that officers could put on to protect them against rifle rounds. But you have to put it on in order for it to be safe, and you don't always know when you need to have it on. And so we made the decision to purchase trauma plates that they can just insert into their vest and wear all the time. We made that purchase. We have Kevlar helmets that officers have now, and they have the ability, they carry with them all the time. So we have better equipment today than we've ever had before to keep officers safe, and I would say our training's better than ever. But that doesn't mean that they're 100% bulletproof.
Hopefully diligent, I'm sure we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then
All
I
right.
just want to say congratulations on the reaccreditation from the Wisconsin Law Enforcement Accreditation Group, the Wausau Police Department, and to the officers receiving recognition for their outstanding work. Our appreciation on behalf of the commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also have our 2022 annual reports. I'll pass those out to the commissioners. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. And next up on the agenda, Chief Bartek with the monthly presentation of the Fire Department. Good morning, Chief.
Good morning. A lot going on the last couple of months to update you on. If you've got your March and April reports, a few things I'd like to point out in there. A lot of interesting stuff going on inside Wausau Fire these days. First, I want to update you on where we're at with our hiring. Of course, November last year, we needed 17 candidates to fill the new positions that we had and the existing positions we had. Right now, as of today, we've got all but 3 filled. We had those filled at one point, but due to the competitive nature of the job market for firefighters, we lost all 3 of those candidates to Green Bay Fire. So we congratulate them on their future career in Green Bay, but we're now seeking their replacement. So we're going to be putting up a posting here soon to get them recruited. I think that we're sitting really strong to reach that 74 position mark. I think that we can be choosy in this next round. We're going to go back to seeking firefighter paramedics. I don't think that we're going to need to try to entertain hiring any EMT basics. We still do have one EMT basic that's enrolled in the North Central Technical College program that we had recruited. He is in the same program that our students are in at the tech. We've got 6 currently in that class. Of course, it's a Wausau Fire cohort. That candidate probably would have been on board, but in late March, end of the ski season, he blew his ACL. And so now he's got to have that surgically repaired. So once he's got that repaired and can pass the candidate physical agility exam, so we're holding a position for him. The exact type of candidate that we want. He's a Wausau native, and we're pretty excited to get him. So he's on track to join that group once he gets fully healed from that injury. So we're going to try to recruit 3 firefighter paramedics. We're looking at an equivalent to RN. We're actually researching that right now. We've got one nurse in particular that's interested in coming to us, and we've been talking with the state about what that looks like to recruit RNs, PAs, NPs, MDs that want to come to the fire service and work as a paramedic. And what the state is telling us is that we're allowed to license those people under our license as a paramedic. Maybe some slight changes in our operational plan to do that. But so far, the early investigations, and I'm the most skeptical one in the room about it, and which is good. And all of the discussions so far have been positive. So it'll be unique. I believe it'll be the first fire department in Wisconsin that will actually advertise for equivalent to paramedic, meaning those levels of medical licensure outside. Go ahead.
How's the firefighting part of the job going to be handled?
Yeah, they still have to have their fire credentials. They still have to have a minimum firefighter 1 in order to apply. So they've had to at least have that minimum. We prefer firefighter 2. We had reduced to firefighter 1 and paramedic last year. And so I don't think it's anything special that we have to do for these types of people. I think that it's required. I would never want to move away from that requirement. And I get that question a lot because to train someone to firefighter 1 is about 90 hours, where to train someone as a paramedic is 1,500 hours. So we get that a lot. Well, couldn't you hire a paramedic and train them as a firefighter? I think that we need to have confidence that those people are going to like that aspect of the job, and the only way to do that is to experience it, at least in the bare minimum training, which is firefighter 1. But that's a great question. So it'll be, the posting will go up firefighter 1, paramedic or equivalent, and hazmat ops. And so that posting should go up here in the next week or so, and we should be bringing candidates to you, I would imagine, in the July PFC. We'll see how the summer goes. We may end up having a special meeting if you're not going to have some normal summer meetings. So that's where we're at with that. On June 2nd, we're having a large swearing event. You should be getting an email this week inviting all of you to that, where we're going to swear in 11 of these new candidates. They're the candidates that we've had out at the West Side Fire Station. We've got some candidates that we have hired that were in the Fox Valley Technical College and the Midstate Technical College program. We've got the candidates that we just hired that you interviewed last, which were both firefighter, paramedic. We've got all of them. We're going to do one large swearing event for all 11. Several of them have already been what we call a soft swearing, where we take them down to the city clerk and swear them in there. And so it'll be a second swearing in, but more of a formal one. Anytime we have our paramedics that begin to make patient contacts, before they do that, they have to be sworn in by law. And so we'll do the soft swearing if they're doing clinical rides and stuff like that. And our medic students are now getting to the point where they're doing those clinical times. So I hope you can attend. It should be a fantastic event. Speaking of accreditation, like Ben had talked about, we are on track to become accredited. We've passed this has been a 1.5 year long project. We had submitted, I believe, last December, our documentation to the Commission for Accreditation of Ambulance Services. We'd be the third department in Wisconsin to be accredited under CAS. We've gotten initial feedback, I believe, I know it was in February, asking for some detailed questions about some of our internal policies. Right now they're scheduling, I believe it's going to be the last week of June that they're going to be here for a site visit. It's a pretty extensive site visit. I've been through it before. My previous department I worked on was accredited under CAS, and I'm confident that we're going to stand the test of that. Of course, it's not about the final accreditation and the sticker in the window of the ambulances that really has an impact on us. It's the process of becoming accredited, where we find the weaknesses inside of our department that the departments of highest excellence in the country are meeting. And so along the way, we were able to find a lot of those. And one of those, which was highlighted by Jared Thompson in the March report, was we were not doing surveys of our customers, meaning that we would send out surveys to our ambulance patients after they were transported that they could evaluate on us. And if you look in your March report, you'll see I was very happy when the first one came back. We we were at or above all of the national benchmarks that this company that we're using for these surveys is using. So against 500 other departments, we were measuring at or above on every metric that they measured. So we're very happy with that. We know we've got great people, but now we can say we know why. I think to me it's everything. When we talk about that we're a department of excellence, where's the benchmark for that? Where is the level that you're measuring yourself against that? Well, this CAS accreditation is going to provide that for us. It will also grease the wheels. We believe that Medicare and Medicaid has long threatened this, that in order to collect from them, which is, of course, our largest segment that we transport and bill to, that they're going to require that EMS agencies be accredited in order to seek payment. And we'll be ahead of that one that requires that. Other things that we had going on in the last couple of months were very interesting. I wrote a request to Tammy Baldwin's office for the replacement of the downtown station. This is a congressional directed spending request. I had met with her staff in advance. She's helped other rural departments with that, with such requests for meeting facilities needs. Say Platteville received $7 million for a new station. Leona received $2 million for a new station through her office. So we wrote an extensive request to her office. Unfortunately, and her staff didn't even realize this when we wrote this request, it's designed for rural EMS, and Wausau Fire Department and the city of Wausau, because of our population size, we didn't qualify for it. You had to be 20,000 or less in order to qualify for the grant. Well, actually, Senator Baldwin came and toured our department. I had a chance to meet with her and chat about that. Wausau Fire Department, we're the largest rural EMS provider in this region, in Marathon County. In the last 2 years, we can document that we've been in 32 different townships, villages, and cities throughout central Wisconsin providing high-quality EMS care, either through our contracted areas or ELS intercepts or mutual aid requests. And so with that, she's willing to talk about a legislative fix to that to allow metro style departments like ours that provide rural EMS to write for these types of grants. So hopefully we can see that. Obviously, it's not going to make a difference this year, but we had an incredible visit with her. She is incredibly knowledgeable in fire and EMS. I was so impressed with her that day. It was a pleasure for us to host her. Other things that are going on. I made a presentation to the committee of the whole, as all of the directors did. I believe that was in late March, to talk about the homeless unhoused issue in Wausau and where we're seeing our interaction with those populations and what are possible solutions to help us work better with those populations. Well, we have a way that we document that, and that's when our paramedics encounter someone that identifies as homeless or unhoused, doesn't give an address. They ask them if they have a place that they call home, and if they don't, they get a check mark on that report that says this person identifies as homeless. In 2022, we had about 300 patients that identified as that, but now we believe that that is not a true number of what we're seeing for homeless and unhoused, because several of these patients will list an old home address. They will list the Salvation Army. They'll list Catholic Charities. Someone like that where they're getting some mail or they've got some type of relationship with that. So I would say that we're at least half again over that. So basically what I told the council, and I'll tell you, is that at least on a daily basis, Wausau Fire Department is helping our unhoused homeless population through medical care. And a lot of times what we're seeing there is that they have no primary care provider. They've got no access to health care besides calling 911 and getting a transport to the emergency department. So what we see on that is that the emergency department, which is very busy, a lot of times has to take a case that wouldn't be, say, acute medical need that requires ED visit, but it's their only access to that point. And of course, it ties up an ambulance also. And as we get busier and busier, our department has to look at ways at reducing call volume. My recommendation to the council was, and they've asked me to further investigate that, is the development of a full-time community care paramedic for the Wausau Fire Department that will work a normal shift, very similar to what the police department social worker is doing. They're going to not only help the homeless and unhoused with medical access, things like that, work with our city social worker and the CART team on different things. There's a great model that's coming out of Madison right now in which community care paramedics can do their traditional role, which is the traditional role of a community care paramedic is to reduce readmissions of vulnerable populations and improve the overall health care of citizens, which is an unbelievable mission. We're looking at that in the traditional role, but then also adding on their availability to work with the homeless unhoused in our community. I've had several meetings with some key leaders inside of our community, and I'm rallying some great support. I'm hoping I can make a presentation to you in the June, at the very latest, the July meeting, about what this would look like for impact on our department. We're very excited about it, and it's moving very quickly forward. So, other things that we have been up to, the state joint finance listening sessions. I made my first trip to a joint finance listening session. I was asked by the Wisconsin State Fire Chiefs Association to assist with the hazmat advisory board, and I went underneath that in that role to talk about the interesting thing with how a lot of the budget stuff in the fire service works in Wisconsin is that the Wisconsin Fire Chiefs Association has to lobby. And so every year that we have, or I should, every biennium as the new state budget is coming out, the Wisconsin State Fire Chiefs have to lobby for continued funding for our state regional hazardous materials response system. And so I went to that joint finance committee meeting to ask that they fund that, because it had not been previously funded in the first round of budget that came through, as other fire chiefs are also asking for that. But then there's the state chiefs does a really good job of prioritizing what the highest level of things that we need assistance from the state on. The other one, the top one that they asked all of us to speak about, was the alternative shared revenue plan that's coming about, that has been a topic of conversation in which a certain segment of shared revenue dollars would be earmarked for public safety. And so I spoke to that, and I also spoke to the need for $1 million to be put into the state budget for the state regional hazardous materials response system, and that continues to be ongoing. So that was another thing that we worked on. I believe that's about all I had. We had some high acuity calls. One really interesting one that we had in March. We had a person that had a medical condition occur while they were driving to their medical appointment at the hospital. They drove their Toyota Prius out onto the pond in front of Aspirus's main building, and that's about a 15-foot deep pond. And the vehicle, about 75% of it sunk. It was a Prius. The front end went in. We got the page for it about 7 a.m. And actually, one of our newest firefighter paramedics, the guy that we hired out of from California, from Anaheim, California, remember Jared Blomberg, he was the first guy on the ice in an ice rescue suit, and he had actually talked about that in his interview. You know, he was very well seasoned from California, and he says, well, I've never done an ice rescue. And well, he's done one now. When he popped the back window on that, the hatch, the occupant of that vehicle was submerged neck deep in the water, was alive but unconscious, and he extricated along with the lieutenant that day, Lieutenant Brian Boutnick, that person, and they transported the person's alive and well today. So we had another swiftwater rescue call. Of course, the spring's always a busy time for that we didn't have to execute. That patient was already out. But so other than that, another smattering of calls that Jeremy has talked about in his report. So any questions for me or Jeremy? I don't have anything else.
All right, then our gratitude from the commission, and I am definitely looking forward to hearing more about the community care paramedic. I think that's going to make a great impact in our community.
We hope so. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, the next meeting will be scheduled for Monday, June 26, 2023 at 7:30 a.m. And is there any further discussion? If not, may I please have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion passes. Adjourned.